Gary Bardazona. Brad Lewis.
So, Commissioners, you indicated that the recycling effort and transfer station approximately a year ago, and you wanted additional research done on that. And Brad and I and Gary and Dan and John worked diligently on the RFP. Really take a hard look. So today I'm just going to give a slight recount of the history, a look at the current situation, just address the two options on the one proposal for the RFP that was submitted, and then answer any questions that you may have, or take input that you have that you want additional information researched. Again, just being the work session, then obviously no decision is made, just for you all to ask questions. So with that, then we'll go to the next slide. The pilot program for the recycling effort was initiated in 2012. And it was initiated to address recycling needs and to divert product from the Adobe Use landfill. Should be noted that the commissioners explicitly said in 2012 that as private enterprise became successful, the county would get out of the recycling business. And currently, the current subsidy from Delta County for the recycling effort averages about $42,000 annually. So if we look at the current recycling effort across the county, it is free to all Delta County residents at the North Fork Transfer Station located outside of Hotchkiss. There is a cost if a constituent takes their product to Double J Recycling located outside of Austin of approximately $5 per carload, or they have a punch ticket that is also an option. But that gives you just a little bit of history and then the current cost. And Brad, Gary, John, if there's anything that I'm missing as I go through this, by all means, please jump in. Or commissioners, if you have any questions, by all means ask. Okay. One of the, when we reached back out to the recycling committee that was in place in 2012, there's the question that they asked us. What is the amount of general fund dollars that other counties contribute to recycling efforts? And so this was information from 2019. Again, direct communication with landfill managers from Gunnison, Montrose, Garfield, and Mesa County. You can see that Gunnison County provides free recycling. However, the product must be sorted by the constituents at a cost of $300,759. And again, this was in 2019 dollars. Montrose is $0, Garfield was $30,000, and Mesa County $120,000. Private enterprise then provides the recycling services in Mesa County and the city of Montrose, and then again the reference to Gunnison County. So that's the cost that we have from surrounding counties. As was reported to the recycling group as well as to the commissioners, and Gary knows full well, here's the problem. Right now at the transfer station, we are ending up with household trash, dead animals, oil, and other non-recyclables that are ending up in the recycle bins, thus contaminating the entire bin. As was reported to you all, it was back in November, December, I believe, that there was oil that was put in the recycle bins that ended up contaminating 65% and making the entire bin Double J is not able to recycle any of that. Private enterprise is providing a recyclable option for Delta County. And again, when we looked across the county as well as surrounding counties, there are businesses that are providing curbside services. There's businesses, private industry offering the recycling, and then private industry offering the compost as well. Worldwide, we have some real issues that are impacting our local recyclable issue as well. Glass is currently not being taken primarily by China, and there is currently no market for plastics number 3 through number 7. And then we have our long-term impact of the next cell that will require a liner. And we're just estimating, this is just an estimation. We don't have solid figures, so it is just an estimation, but we are saving in the enterprise fund for the $3 million anticipated cost for the next liner and cell expansion. So the proposal, RFP 2021-08 was released, and Brad, you'll have to refresh my memory when we actually released that, if that's handy. If not, it's not critical.
Yeah. On March 10th, we published it. The DCI, the public notice was published and published on the county website on the same day.
Okay, thank you, Brad. One bid was received. The bid basically provided two options. Proposal A, $40,000 cost to Delta County. A free paper and or cardboard bin would be located in Delta, Cedar Ridge, and Hotchkiss. A $25 punch card valid for 10 visits per year. $5 to $25 one-time drop-off recycling based on amount and type of material would be charged, or a $5 per bag of single stream. Now again, this was option or proposal A submitted by the one proposal. Proposal B by the same entity is a cost of $125,000 to the county. Again, a free paper and or cardboard bin in Delta, Cedar Ridge, and Hotchkiss. But recycling would be free to all residents at their facility in Austin. So again, the two proposals.
So just a little clarification, Robbie, or just further information. So proposal B is close to the specs. Basically, it excluded plastic 3 through 7. But other than that, it basically meets the specs. Proposal A is a complete alternative. It doesn't really meet the specs that were published at all. So it is it's just an alternative approach.
Thank you, John. Any questions there before we continue?
When it says paper at Delta, Cedar Ridge, and Hotchkiss, proposal A, then would they also be plastics and glass at the same locations?
No.
That would be
Plastics
at
and
the
glass,
Austin
right, to the Austin location.
So was there any discussion, because Delta offers a cardboard dump site out there on the back of their city shop property? City governments. I don't know what all we do with that. I know every once in a while they bring a shredder in there and they shred it all up. But I just was curious if there was any discussion or if they made any mention about, what I kind of hate to spend money if we have a partner in the city of Delta that's already doing something with their cardboard disposal.
There was no mention of that in either proposal A or proposal B. Current recycling, here's by weight and by volume. You can see by weight, 34% paper, 22% cardboard, 18% glass, 16% food and beverage containers, 10% contamination. And then by volume, cubic yards.
What percentage of contamination has to occur before it spoils the whole room?
I don't. Is that a question you'd like us to find out?
Well, not necessarily, that was a problem in Northport. But the halfway crashing the green,
Right.
how often that just, had to be dumped for everything.
So Robbie, where did those numbers come from? Because those are not numbers that were ever given to Brad.
Oh, those came directly from Dr. J. current.
This
They're
is
currently
what's
being done.
currently being done. We asked for these numbers before the RFP.
I think we asked for those numbers too, and never got them. So that's why I had a question. That,
Yeah, those came directly from the other. Okay, then just again, looking at the weight per cubic yard, and then weight per bin, total per bin size, where we're at currently with the different streams. Okay, if you look at then what,
sorry, can you go back? I apologize. The loop was not-
Gary, you provided these numbers.
Right. That was per cubic yard
And when it says
Based
cost,
on-
sorry, Gary, please.
based on the 30-yard dumpsters.
So when it says cost per ton, what does that mean?
Or that's what the landfill.
That's the price of the landfill
That's the landfill.
price. The 45s. And we figured out the paper to be $500 a cubic yard, then your cardboard, your plastic, and your glass. Actually, your glass is the heaviest. And then we try to calculate the weight per the bin at a 30-yard average. And the price.
So generally refuse going into the dump across the board is $45
Right.
a ton.
If they were to dump it in the landfill.
That's not your cost. It's not the county's cost. That's the cost we're charging the public.
Right.
Remember that the cost we're charging for the public is still below our cost. When the landfill has presented their information in the past, believe it was 2019, our actual cost was closer to $47 per ton. And that time we were charging 40. And the commissioners had recommended the increase to 45. So we're still below our cost for the landfill. Gary, if I am not remembering that correctly, please correct me.
So the other part about that too is, I mean, we still, that's at a per ton cost, where we, as an enterprise fund, the only reason we're able to ever save money has more to do with the guys coming in paying the minimum truck fee, they're bringing in, a
Right.
couple hundred pounds.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd never be able to save money for an next sell. But for our commercial haulers, when they haul, we aren't making money on our commercial.
Okay, so then based on the current tonnage, only of the bins then that are not going to Adobe units, we figured 2 trips per week for the 4 existing bins at the transfer station and the paper bins. And we know that at times during the summer, there's 3 trips per week, but we just did the 2 trips per week because we had that information. There's approximately 3,112 tons that are not currently going into the landfill on an annual basis. So if you just do that at the straight cost of $45 per ton, then it's about $140,000 of value of the trash at the 3,112 tons that's not going into the landfill.
So Robbie, I hate to keep coming in here, but the RFP, the data that Rachel gave Brad was 500 tons a year, not over 3,000 tons a year.
Gary, this information came from you.
That's the way we had it figured out. Well, where should we get to 500 tons?
Well, that's a factor of 6 that we're off, so.
I don't know where she would get that, because if you average the 30-ton bins, that's the average we took.
Okay, so then we need to figure that out.
No, that's not right.
Mhm. Okay, other options that we did look at, if we were to hire one person at the transfer station, sorry, not the landfill, just to oversee the recycle bins, then currently Delta County would still be competing with a private enterprise with overhead, location costs and salary approximated 55,000. And then water and power is still not readily available. So we did look at that as well. In case there's other options you want us to look at. So in summary, the recycling pilot program is a success and has resulted in a reduction of product being sent to the landfill. The pilot program is now 9 years old, which is hard to believe, but it is now 9 years old as a pilot program. Recycling cost, if subsidized by Delta County, should be similar for all residents. Worldwide markets continue to reduce the recycling options for public and private entities. And then staff recommendation is to consider option B for a period of 3 years to determine viability. So are there other questions that you, besides the ones we've identified as far as the exact tonnage not going into the landfill, that you would like us to dig into deeper to help you make your decision? I anticipate that we would put this on the board agenda for the first, or for the next county commissioner meeting, which would be April 20th.
So how quickly are they gonna be able to roll out the new program? If we gave them a green light, said we're gonna go with the full scale $120,000 a year model, how quickly can they be ready to roll that?
So if I remember right, Brad, the tally sheet says 30 days.
Yeah, it's 30 days. From notice of award.
And that option B, they're staffing somebody at the Austin yard.
They currently have staff there because they currently take all of the recyclables there.
So,
So we can reduce contamination.
well, let's see, and that's, so, but before you were on board here, we've had this discussion numerous times. In fact, Commissioner Lane, Commissioner Rover, and I went out, we physically went out and looked at the transfer station, and I mean, it's a mess, you know, it was supposed to be an honor system where people went out and put their trash in, and granted, a lot of people did, a lot of people, they separated them out, they did like they're supposed to, but you know, as always, you got a few bad apples that are for everybody. And that's, you know, without putting somebody out there full-time to monitor it, it's just not really a doable system. Yeah, so, so that's what, you know, that's kind of what prompted this whole conversation. You know, we had a work session with Bill J came to that recycling work session. Did you have somebody else come to, or were they? Roberts came also. And we discussed, you know, what are our options? What are we gonna do to fix the recycling problem? And, you know, and that was the only two answers. Either we close the Hotchkiss transfer station or we pay somebody out there to babysit. So I think we're on the right track. There's no doubt that, you know, looking at the cost of landfill space and what we gotta do to prep a new cell in the landfill and just what it takes to keep things moving there, we need to divert as much of that as we can, so it's not going into the landfill. I just, you know, my concern is that $120,000 a year is a pretty good chunk of money. And you know, Alan Greenspan, one of my favorite quotes is, taxes get raised and lowered, and the entitlement program never go away. And, you know, this recycling is technically going to be an entitlement. Is it a good thing? Probably. Is it? I know there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. I like the idea of a three-year, you know, program here to make sure that we're working and gonna see if it'll work. But
Well,
Still a lot of money.
one, to me, to justify the 101,000, we got to confirm tonnage. What John had in Gary's. Make sure we're on track with that 3,000.
So Gary, you're saying you hold bids twice a week?
On the majority, yes. Summertime, might do it 3 times. At $200 each. They charge us $200 each to haul.
So that'll be a cost savings also.
Right.
Because we won't be paying the whole bids.
So as far as the recycling materials go and stuff, I don't have any of that information. Of what they accept, what they've accepted. in terms of- I never get that. I only get what the trucking cost is. And I average it on the 30-yard bins. And then the one on 4th and Baker, in the summertime, you might get 1 week, most times 2-3 weeks. So we tried to average it all out.
Well, is that a single-use bin down here still, or is that for?
And it's paper, cardboard, beer cans, whatever anybody wants to throw in it that day. And
So,
there's-
but at one point in time, they had it was a separated bin, wasn't it? It was where you could, your aluminum here and paper here, and
Not since I've been here,
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
maybe I'm mistaken.
So the information, just so that the board is clear. So the information that was bid, which is part of bid. So in other words, any bidder would have bid into those specs was so that they had an idea of what volume. First of all, it doesn't break it out, and that was the question I asked a few minutes ago, because that information was not provided to Brad. But then the second thing is the tonnage was for 2019 was 545 tons. And for 2020, it was 496 tons. And that's why when I throw out the number 500, I'm just averaging there. And so that's what any bidder looking at this would have bid. If you take 500 tons and you divide the $125,000, essentially that is subsidizing $250 a ton to accept recyclable materials. That's as far as my math got. But so there's a real discrepancy. And again, those are the numbers that were provided to Brad. Those are the numbers that were part of the specs. And that's what anybody that bid, that chose to bid, would have bid into. They're planning on, in other words, they would be planning on accepting around 500, maybe a little bit more than that, tons per year. And we're talking about option B, because that's the one that contemplates free recycling or acceptance of recyclable materials free to county residents. I want to make sure the board understands what the bid says, the specs say, and then what the bid actually is.
Okay, then we will get that clarification.
In the RFP, is there any contemplation of what happens if the glass market crashes and there's no longer a place for this proponent to take glass and use it? Because that's a big chunk of tons.
It does reference in there that if market conditions change, then double J on either option will come back to the county and may adjust. It also says that if there is contamination at the free bins in Delta, Cedar Ridge, and Hotchkiss, that they have the right to remove them completely. The paper and cardboard bins that they list in both options.
So back to the prior point of tonnage. Personally, I'm a lot less worried about tonnage than I am yardage. Because ultimately, we're trying to keep this out of the landfill. So it should be the yardage that we're much more worried about instead of tonnage.
So you, okay, so let's go back.
And you're right. But, it's, if we're gonna clarify, a number, I'd be a
Let's
lot
get the
more,
yards.
I'd be a lot more concerned about the yardage, because, I mean, we can bring in truckloads and truckloads of glass. And as far as long-term effects of our landfill, we can compact that down, and that's a lot easier for us to compact and make use of our landfill versus the same tonnage in cardboard, and we're lost half a cell.
So both tonnage and yardage.
I'll throw out there just because it came up a minute ago that if the board is considering or gets to the point of considering awarding an RFP in a contract, I would argue for as short a time as possible. In this, and I think, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, the RFP actually anticipates a 1-year contract with the possibility of renewals for 2 more years.
That's why we did that.
And because there's so many variables, so many moving parts, so many things we don't know, and frankly, the people who are professionals in the recycling world don't know, that I would be hesitant to recommend to the board to go into any kind of long-term contract at all, because frankly, we're probably gonna have to get out of it, or they're gonna have to get out of it before a 3 years. Now, whether that's acceptable, but frankly, that's what's in the bid. The bid is a 1-year contract with the possibility of two renewals. That's a little different than what you just said. I don't know.
Well, and that was just based on, the past year is not a good year to make a decision upon. So we were allowing time for there to actually have more of a normal year. But I hear what you're saying.
I mean, big picture, I mean, you all can spend, anybody in this room can spend 15 minutes on Google and type in what the recycling market looks like nowadays. And there are article after article after article, including, quasi scientific articles about this. It's all over the internet. And because of, and this is a legal thing, I did spend 15 minutes or half an hour on it. And, China made some significant changes in accepting trash and recyclables, and that has rocked the recyclable market before. And this is not just a Delta County issue. This is all over the whole country. There's no easy answer. It's all over the world. It's not just, it's all over the world.
Right.
What do you do with these streams that are these refuse streams that are recycled? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't.
It's referred to as
Several years ago,
green fence law
Right.
came about when China decided not to become the world's dumping ground. So they backed up the markets throughout the world, and it diminished the markets in their area.
And once again, I mean, it's the same concept as ever, we think we're being environmental by recycling, and all we're doing is shipping to China, they're dumping.
Yeah, that's
They're
right.
just building big landfills, they're dumping in the ocean. I mean, it's.
That's right.
I think ultimately, I don't know that shipping it to China is the environmentally responsible thing to do anyways. But Gary can set up an incinerator power plant, start burning cardboard and generating power.
Well, we could throw a match on it. I'm sure it'll
Illegal to burn
explode.
trash in Colorado, right? Well,
Is there any other questions or information you want researched that would, when we bring it back to you for your decision then?
couple things. Do they list hours of operation and days of the week?
They do.
Mhm.
Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 4. 28 hours a week. The specs call for 20.
And no Saturday? in there?
Not even.
Okay.
proposal.
And this is gonna be for Delta County residents only.
No, my question would be brought up and addressed.
And electronics is still outside of the scope.
And they'll continue to use a pre-sorted system. It'll all be pre-sorted. All that contamination.
I know, well, we just need to make sure to clarify on the electronics, because that's an expensive process of recycling
I
electronics.
think the one proposal does indicate outside, it's not including.
I think at this time, there's a double J taking electronics, TVs and everything.
They're charging.
Yeah, they charge.
Brad, in your work on this, was there anything that you saw that were missing?
No, I really don't. We've worked tirelessly on this over many months. I must tell you that there was only 2 other legitimate plan, if you look at the plan force list, those that actually pulled the RFP, there are only 2 other legitimate, that was Waste Management, and then there was a consulting firm. I guess that they were wanting to consult in this area, but that's it. There were several people that looked at it, but they weren't in the business, they were just looking at it, so. It wasn't a lot of interest.
May I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
It was hazardous waste like paint talked about it all. I just know that's a big thing. Communities talk to me about it.
It wasn't discussed in the RFP. Or in their proposal, actually, they just. They just said they have the right to discontinue use if they are filled with contamination or residual or non-recyclable material. But there was no such direct reference to hazardous waste.
Accepting it. Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Well, I can't think, I'm still concerned with that kind of expenditure. If we can effectively see that reduction in yardage and order entry, I think it would be good. I would love to see, a better, more responsible recycling market for all that stuff, but I don't know what's gonna happen. Smarter minds than mine have probably tried to work on that problem without success also.
But it's a tough one. But most of the people, when recycling was down, trash.
Right.
So, you have the trucking expense, and I don't know if they charge the county or anything for the contamination. That I don't know, but I know they have, once you get a contaminated bin and dump it on their property, they also have to clean the property. So that they're probably charged for that, charge the county for that. And as far as extensive, the liquids, and stuff like that, I don't know if you could count that as hazardous material if it's still in containers. You know, I don't know what they do there.
Well, I looked at what our neighboring counties are doing. Of course, Montrose, that landfill is owned by that Waste Management, so they're not near as concerned about landfill as we are. Mesa County, they're talking $120,000, but they've got 5 times the population we do.
Right.
Gunnison, they've always had more money than we've had per capita spend on projects, so.
Really, the only way to justify that expense is if it's the diversion garbage.
Well, honestly, yeah.
And I think Tom, because of mine, but it's the garbage.
I mean, just add it. Taking one thing of cardboard. I mean, if we were able to effectively divert all cardboard that's going into our landfill, it would be an absolutely incredible amount of space. Just that one item.
Could you send us the?
So we'll be, look to have this on our meeting in 2 weeks.
Unless you guys direct us.
I think personally, get a few of these questions answered and let's see your heads.
And then go with 1 year rather than a 3-year.
Well, I like the idea of the way he's got it set up.
Yeah,
1 year with the foster extension for 2 years, because we may get into this 1 year and say, yeah, this is peaches and cream, let's do this again. But if not, we got a chance to renegotiate or resubmit for proposals or whatever we want to do.
And we'd be looking at Gary going, is this actually reducing?
Well, and honestly, I don't know, I mean, our landfill uses up so much, I don't know that Gary would know other than what we actually see out of the report from Double J. You know, that's probably what we're gonna have to make sure that we see is some kind of reporting from them, what they're actually having brought in. So.
And is the use what we thought it'd be?
Right.
Okay, we will clarify that discrepancy and get back to you.
One other thing, the cardboard paper dumpsters and that they were talking about spreading throughout the county. That was them hauling or us hauling?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that'd have to be on there.
Yeah, okay, good.
But I wouldn't suggest putting a glass one anywhere.
and neither proposal will be.
I just wanted to make sure that was them hauling, not us. So.
Right, I think if they accept this, then we won't have any more trucking costs.
Right.
No.
Right, that would be reduction.